Welcome back to another episode of the Middle School Athletic Director Podcast. It's officially March. It is March 1st. So there's a lot of great things happening in March, right? That's why they call it March Madness. If you're a basketball fan, right, that tournament's fixing to kick off, whether it be on the girls' side or the boys' side. If you've listened to this podcast before, you know I bleed orange. I am Clemson through and through. But it may be another year that the South Carolina Gamecocks women's team pulls out a championship. They've got a pretty good thing rolling right now, so we'll see. Right. So if you're if you're a basketball fan, a lot of good to look forward to. The other thing about March Madness is it's really the kickoff of the state AD conference season. So really hope that we've talked about it the past couple of episodes. Really hope you've registered to go to your state conference and are able to do that this spring if yours is happening in March and April. Again, a very great opportunity to learn and grow in this profession. So and if I'm gonna be at a good bit of some of the state conferences, so if I'm around, you see my name, please stop by and see me. So today we're talking about an episode or talking about a topic that we've kind of touched on in other episodes, but we really haven't had a dedicated episode for this topic, and that is the dual role athletic director. Whether it be a teacher AD, assistant principal AD, we even talk about an adjunct AD. So maybe somebody that doesn't work in the building and has another job that comes over and does the AD stuff in the evening. So a lot of great stuff packed into this episode. We hope that you get better from it. But before we dive in, here's a word from our sponsors.
Bring your school's legacy to life with the Wall of Fame by Vital Signs. Our interactive display highlights your greatest moments and top performers, both past and present, across athletics, academics, and the arts. But it's also so much more. With our one-of-a-kind content program, we help you every step of the way so you can tell more compelling stories that will engage your whole community.
Box Out gives you the ability to create graphics at the speed of sports to highlight your athletic department, teams, and student athletes in seconds. Used and trusted by Notre Dame, Ohio State, UConn, Marquette, Georgetown, and many more of the top college brands in the country. If you want your school's brand to stand out through all the clutter, start your free demo at boxoutsports.com.
This is Game Time. Neptune Game Time creates a high-energy game day atmosphere that your players and fans will love. Every song in our database is 100% lyric safe, which means you can stop screening music for good. Game Time also provides custom messaging to help you promote your upcoming events, concessions, and event-specific announcements. And it gives you the opportunity to sell sponsorships on your station that will generate revenue for your athletic department. Amp up your game day with Game Time.
So welcome back to another one. I think we got a great topic today. I think one that we've touched on definitely in season one, and we've hit on a little bit in different topics, but we really hadn't focused on the AD being a multi-role position, not just the athletic director, but possibly being a teacher, an assistant principal, and things like that. So I think we got a great one. Today we are speaking with Jayson Bruce, who is a certified athletic administrator through the NIAAA, and he is the athletic director at Loveland Middle School in Ohio. So, Jayson, thanks for jumping on with us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So, within, the next 2 or 3 minutes or so, to tell the listeners more a little bit about you and kind of what led you to being an AD.
Awesome. It was, many steps along the way, as most people are. Started off teaching math, middle school level math, did that for 10 years. Along the way, actually, while in college, I got my start coaching. My mentor allowed me to sit on the bench and coaching practices and things. And so it kind of got me projected there down the line, and got to do some high school coaching and varsity assistant along the way, girls basketball, boys basketball, even down in the football, down in the junior high ranks. So I always knew that I wanted to be involved in athletics outside of my own, playing days when I was in school. And it was the natural fit, teach and coach. So I thought it was awesome. And then I got the administration bug, which I think a lot of people do. And went and got my administrator's license. Ended up becoming an assistant principal for several years. A couple other school districts, came back to Loveland where I'm at now. And this is, I think, my 10th year as an administrator in Loveland, 6th year as AD AP. And I probably have one of the most unique roles when it comes to that AP piece, when it comes to AD life. I oversee all special education in our building. So I know a lot of the AD, AP combos are typically the ones that oversee discipline and things like that. So it's unique for me. It's unique for a lot of folks. It's very time consuming. One of the biggest things that I see with this is, you finish up your game 7:30, 8 o'clock, you get home 8:30, 9 o'clock, and all of a sudden you got to be back in the morning at 7 a.m. for a meeting, for an IEP meeting. So it is not unusual to have 13, 14-hour days. And typically during basketball season, which we're in right now, we're looking at Monday through Thursday every week, occasionally Friday if we got wrestling meets. So it's very interesting. It's a tough life. You literally from 7 a.m. until 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. That's the life. So it's a great one. It's a fun one. You get to meet a lot of kids and be involved in a lot of action. But I'd say my role is probably pretty unique in the world of AD life.
Well, good deal. Yeah. So before we jump into the great uniqueness of ADs, so what do you do? Because you just said, right, it's a full day's job. So what is a hobby that you do that maybe some people know, maybe some people don't, about you, that you really enjoy to do, that kind of takes your mind and off of the AD stuff, but it also kind of maybe relaxes you a little bit, because it could be a very stressful job.
I have to say my number one hobby is my kids. So I've got a sophomore in high school and an 8th grader, and just following them pretty much everywhere they go. My oldest is a swimmer year round, and my youngest plays soccer and futsal pretty much year round. So I'm always involved in something when it comes to that. And if they're not playing, then we're probably toting them around to a practice or up at the park, just kicking the soccer ball at them. She's a goalie, so we get to take out a little frustration to kick the soccer ball at them. So that's really my hobby, is just being with them. When there's really nothing going on, we just like to be outside, sitting out on the back deck, listening to music. As rarely as that happens, but that's one of our favorite things. And if you can get a good, cool fall evening where the fire pit comes out, that's even better. So that's the relaxing piece, of just being around family and friends, and just being away from the actual job is what we're aiming for.
Oh yeah. Like I said, we're always wanting that, especially the weekends, right? You try to keep the weekend sacred for family, but we understand that there's a lot of times there's tournaments and things like that you got to be at the school. So, so we're going to jump right, kind of into because I think there's going to be a lot to kind of dive into this. But before we do, we want to thank our title sponsor, Wall of Fame. Again, like you've heard plenty of times, they can help bring your legacy to life at your school with their amazing touchscreen and web browsers and things like that. So please look up Vital Signs Wall of Fame if you need any type of recognition software and different ways to recognize your teams, coaches, athletes, and things like that. All right, Jayson. So again, big topic. Again, middle school ADs. I haven't come across many that are full time. And I've come across a couple, maybe because they're in a big district, but they maybe they still share a role at that point as the assistant high school AD, but they're the middle school AD. So they're still really kind of sharing a role. And so, what's it look like? I know a lot of them are teacher AD. But they're, like you said, there's some like you that are also AP AD. So let's maybe touch on the teacher first. If you're a teacher, but also the AD, maybe some struggles you've seen, but also some strategies that you have seen that kind of helps to get through that.
Well, and I think it's a lot like the teacher piece and the assistant principal piece are very similar in some of their struggles, in that it's the time commitment. A teacher is going to have to be there the full school day as well as the assistant principal. So I think it becomes just, balancing the other half of the job before you can actually get to the AD piece. And sometimes with that teacher role, you talk about, okay, I've got to grade papers. I got to plan for the next week. I got to, go to teacher meetings, department meetings, whatever it may be. So there's so many pulls away from the designated athletic director time that we'd like to believe and pretend that it's truly a half and half split from most of those situations, but the reality isn't. It's almost two full jobs in one. So I think the biggest thing that is being able to find something that works for you, a system that works for you. And I'll tell you, and it's not a plug, but Google Docs has been one of the greatest things in the world for me. And just for the simple fact that I can get it on my phone, I can get it on any laptop, computer, anywhere I'm at. And, you're always getting that, 6:45 text. Hey, what time am I supposed to practice tomorrow? It's like, well, hold on a second, and you got to pull up Google Sheets and you figure it out. So I do just about everything in Google Sheets. And I think that that's where anybody that is a dual role has got to find what works for them. And I know there's a lot of teachers out there that do this. And it's in our area, it's becoming fewer and fewer that are dual roles. There are more and more full-time athletic directors, at least in our conference. And we're a conference of fairly large size Division I schools. Division I here in Ohio is the largest division. Mm-hmm. So we're creeping slowly to that point, but it is just finding the balance. It's finding the time, finding the way to do it that works for you. And that's the same with when it comes to me. And there's a lot of times where I'm struggling an hour before a game just to come up with the money box, just to get it going, because I thought I was going to have the time in the morning. And all of a sudden something came up and I got pulled into another meeting. So that's the biggest key to all of it, is finding your balance and finding the things that work for you. And one of my big suggestions with that is talk to folks, call around the people in your conference or those schools around you and say, hey, what works for you? What doesn't? I've been blessed that I've worked with a lot of great athletic directors over the years as coaches, but I'm surrounded by some really, really good ones that anytime I pick up the phone and call them, they're going to answer and they're going to give me their thoughts and, their wisdom for many years. So I think it's leaning on, those folks that have been there, done that. I think is super important as well.
Yeah. So like you said, trying to find that balance, sometimes it's still even hard. Cause again, I was a teacher AD when I was at the middle school level, and so you have a planning, right? Hopefully you have a planning sometime during the day. But a lot, like you said, a lot of that time is you've got a team meeting, or you've got a parent meeting, or you've got, at that point, you're trying to grade assignments or prepare for the next day or whatever. So you can't use that hour or so to go get the money box, or to go try to start setting up the gym or painting the field and then things like that. Because you got to do your main job, right? You're right. To me, I always thought, the AD was my main job, but that's not what was paying the bills, right? Especially at the middle school level, it's the main job, the teacher, the AP. And so I've always asked, again, I think I got it one time. If you can, ask maybe the administration. I understand I got my teaching planning. Is there a way that I can have an athletic director planning? If there's not, because of the way the schedule's made up, is there a way that I don't have morning or afternoon duty? And that way that can kind of, quote unquote, or I don't have a home room, or I don't have something like that. So that can kind of be that AD time, to be able to get some things done. But yeah, that's tough, because just like you said, even if I am able to get out and paint the field, or I have to, really not able to, but I have to go out and paint the field during that planning, then I know when I get home at 8 o'clock at night, now I'm gonna spend another hour or two grading papers. So any suggestions with that? I understand. I'm a big Google person as well. People that have listened, and the fans of it, have the middle school AD, have heard Google a lot. We actually had 2 episodes just on Google. So I think Google is your friend. But what do you say to those teacher ADs that do get a little frustrated, especially on the school side of it, right? Or the teaching side of it.
Absolutely. I think be your biggest advocate. And, they're going to say no if you don't ask. And I think often, and now I see the administrative side from it, and just teachers coming to us for things in general, not necessarily an AD piece like this, but, we haven't thought of all the answers because we don't know the questions that need to be asked. And I think, the teachers that are stuck in that AD role, I think having the conversations with your admin and potential solutions, like you said, maybe it's no homeroom, or maybe we're only teaching 4 bells instead of 5, something like that. Coming with some of those possible scenarios, I think are very important. But continuing to advocate for yourself, I think, is the biggest piece. And I think one of the things that to look at is keeping track of hours. How many hours are you spending truly on athletic director duties? How many hours are you spending at games per week? And I think that those are things that you can bring to the table and say, hey, look, here's where we're at. Here's what I'm trying to do. And maybe it's how about you guys give me a site supervisor for X amount of days per season? At least that gives me some kind of relief, to where I can be home and I can see my kids, or I can just get time back, and it's so valuable. But I think being able to think outside the box, now that's such a cliche term, but think different than what the admin probably have been thinking about it. And they may not know the problems. They might not understand that you're spending that much time there. So if you're not speaking up and coming up with the solutions or potential solutions, I don't think anything's ever going to change. So, my biggest thing is talk, be your biggest advocate, and then incorporate the high school ADs. Start talking to them about thoughts on how they can maybe help eliminate, the part of the problem or the stress that goes with it. Obviously, they're going to see the job vastly different than maybe a building principal would. So having that high school AD in your corner is a really good thing as well. And it's never meant to catch somebody or go behind somebody's back, but it's also about everybody understanding what the job is about and what it entails and the hours, and having to deal with all of the other pieces that go with it. That are just even outside of games. We've got to be there for parent nights. We've got to be there for, especially the teacher role. They're still having to be there for conferences and all of the teacher stuff outside of the classroom. Then throw all of the other pieces on there. So I think it becomes just talking, speaking up, asking for help, and then even leaning on your maintenance department a little bit. See if they can help you paint the fields. And once again, they may not know you need that help. Until you speak up and ask for it. So that's a big thought of mine. Just advocate for yourself.
Yeah, that goes back, I think, to the second episode of the second season is the department of one, right? Middle school, most time we're the department of one, and how can you justify and tell and help and get help, right? Sometimes again, if you just ask your soccer coach, like, hey, I need you to paint the field this season. There's no way I can do it. A lot of times that they'll be like, hey, yeah, I want to do it because it's, quote unquote, my field. I want it to look a certain way and things like that. They actually may take a little bit better care of it than I would as an AD. So, doing things like that. But you kind of brought up a great point, is a lot of people think that athletic directors just show up to games and that's it. That's all we do. We just show up to games and we take tickets and we tell people they can't come in because without a clear bag, right? That our job is those 2, 3, 4 hours, however long the games are. But again, right, they don't see all the background stuff. They don't see all the eligibility and collecting paperwork and collecting, if you have sport insurance and the evaluations you have to do of coaches and the meetings that you have all the time because parents aren't happy with playing time, and all of those things are really the job. The perk is being able to finally get to the game and stand there and watch for a little bit, right? Still not staying there watching the entire game, but you still get to, kind of stand and breathe for a little bit.
Yeah, that's the best part. Watching kids do great things, and that you witnessed them practice all week long, and then it gets to, come to a fruition on a Wednesday or Thursday or whatever it is, game day is, and watching your kids that you form these relationships with go out and do great things. That's really what the job is about. But the problem is, in order to get to that, you're 4, 5, 6, 7 months in planning. And it is like everything you said. And then there's buses, and then there's, just navigating officials and, crowds and all of the other pieces that go with it. And, a game may start at 4:30. You started setting up at 3:15. So there is, there's not a whole lot of downtime. But you're right. I think a lot of people think, oh, it's just a game. You're there for the game and that's it. There's so much more that goes into it. And now there's just, it seems like there's even more. There's more forms that you got to be managing. There's more eligibility you got to be take care of. And then these ever changing laws here in Ohio that we've got to be taking care of as far as eligibility and stuff. So there's a lot more to the job than people could ever imagine. Somebody once said to me that, oh, it's just buses and balls. You just got to worry about having buses there and have the basketballs or the footballs ready. And I'm like, well, I wish it was just that, because I get a whole lot of time back.
That's right.
So yeah, so it's so much more than that. And it's, we're already right now here at the end of January, I'm scheduling for tennis in the fall and looking at scheduling some basketball games in the winter already. So you're always several months ahead of time. So, it's
if you want to do your job right, if you want to do it right, there are, again, just like any profession, there are some that just schedule officials and transportation, and a lot of times you can tell, right? You show up to that school and you're like, okay, yeah, there's this is somebody that maybe just got thrown into it and I really don't really care about it and just doing it, or like I said, just doesn't have the time. Now I was going to say, we're also a sports information director now, right? We were talking before we got on the middle school level, putting out things on social media and things like that, because a lot of people don't go to websites anymore, and a lot of middle schools don't have an athletic website, right? So if parents got a question, they can never find it. But so a lot of people go to the social media to try to find the answers, right? To whatever the question is the game canceled? What time is the game? What, things like that. And so if we're not doing that as either, right, then we're going to be answering more phone calls and emails because people don't know the information. So
and those questions always happen 20 minutes before the game starts. So no matter what you're doing, you got to go answer those phone calls or those emails. So it's, yeah, the more you've got it up, and we've been lucky that our middle school and high school share the same 7 through 12 athletics website, where you can find just about everything you need, including schedules and things. That's been a change over the last couple of years. So we're very, very lucky to have that. But as everything, that's a pretty significant cost to have a substantial website. So you got to look at budgets and how does that fit in? Is it worth it? Those things. So it does help. It takes a lot of the burden off of the athletic director to have to answer those questions all the time, if you've got a one-stop shop for them to go to.
Oh yeah. So is the APAD different? I understand, maybe the assistant principal may have a little more time during the day to get some things done because they're not stuck in a classroom, if you want to say, that you can kind of maneuver your time around a little bit more. But with AP, there comes a whole other slew of issues, not just having to teach and grade papers and things like that. So is there really any other differences that you could think of for the APAD?
I think the biggest one is there is flexibility with the AP piece. As a teacher, you're going to be teaching from this bell to this bell, from this time to this time. There is the flexibility with the assistant principal piece, but there's also emergencies arise. And the time that you had set aside, maybe it's 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock to get everything ready for the day's game. All of a sudden something came up, you've got parents that need to talk to you, or there's a situation down at the board office you need to attend to. Like all of a sudden that time just got ate up. So it's great to have the flexibility, but often you're so busy that you still don't have that flexibility. And what time you do have can often be taken for other things that, since you're in charge of it, you've got to be, the one that goes and takes care of it. So I think it's all of the same stuff. It's the same challenges and the same battles. that we face either way. So yeah, it's I would say that it's tough. Being a teacher, an AD, and being an assistant principal and AD are extremely tough. If you're an AD slash anything, no matter what it is, it's tough because your time gets eaten up, and what you thought was going to be your time for the athletics isn't always your time for athletics.
Yeah, and like I said, I can see it from y'all's side because obviously the AP is always going to come before the AD. And I've got some good friends that all they see, like I said, they're the typical discipline, right? They deal with the discipline, and that's all they do all day. It's like, I can never get outside, I can never do anything else because I'm always dealing with discipline. And it could be just little minor things about not wearing your ID and things like that, or it could be something very serious. Obviously, if it's very serious, it's going to take your entire day. And so I can see where that, where teachers, if there's an issue, usually you get rid of them, right? And the assistant principal is the one that comes and gets them. And so, like you said, as the assistant principal, I could be out there painting the field and then get that phone call saying, "Hey, we need assistance," and then the field is halfway painted. Um, so I mean, I've never been the APAD, but I could see that too. Again, as the teacher, you're always looking like, oh, be great to be an APAD because you have time.
Right.
But really looking at it, that you might not have as much time.
Yeah. And often the buck stops with you, whether it's athletics or whatever other piece that you're dealing with, the buck stops with you. And that's not to minimize the teacher role at all, because the buck of teaching the class still stops with that teacher. So there's all of the planning and the preparation and the grading of papers that they have to worry about. But it's tough. It is, no matter what the other half is, unless there are some real true time constraints and barriers that are put in place to not allow things to overlap. It is tough. It's extremely tough. So you just, and one of the things that I found is I've really got to take advantage of the time when things are slow and I have the ability to grab an extra hour and dedicate it towards athletics. You got to take advantage of it because you never know when you're then going to have to turn around and give up 3 hours. So
Yeah. So for the APs/ADs that are listening and that can kind of manipulate their schedule, we understand that it still may be where you have set things where the principal says you always meet at this time or whatever. But would you recommend more maybe when you're trying to make the schedule to focus uh, more on the athletics in the morning or in the afternoon? Which one do you see that kind of gets more interrupted?
so I try to put the athletic piece in the afternoon because then I can roll right into setup for games and things like that. We have a ton of meetings that start at 7 o'clock in the morning for special ed. So I have to spend, obviously that morning piece, no matter what, working in that world. So for me, it's pretty much just knock the first half of the day out with the AP role and then roll into the athletics. With, setting up for a football game, is everybody thinks it takes, half an hour, but that can take an hour and a half. Once you're talking about blowing out the stands, you got to get the press box ready, all these things. So, those are a lot of things that can't be done in the morning as well. Just the time of the day and all of that stuff. So I like to start the morning off with the AP stuff and then roll into the athletic director role. And for me, it just works better because I'm very lucky. I've got two offices. So I have an office up in the main office that I use in the morning. And then I have an athletic office that's right off the gym. So I go back there, trot about halfway through the day, and then kind of mentally switch roles. But it allows me to be around everything that I need. And that's, if I had to just operate out of the front office, I think it would be tougher for me because I wouldn't be around everything that I needed for the AD piece. So that's kind of why I structure things the way I do.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, even for the APs, but also for teachers, if your classroom, if your AP office, if whichever the situation is your AD office as well, that's where I could see that the AD will always get pushed to the side. Because if I'm sitting in my classroom working on the athletic stuff and doing things like that, and another teacher walks in, a student walks in, assistant principal walks in, they think I'm working on school stuff, which I mean, technically I am, but you're working on the athletic piece of it. But if you can find an area to separate yourself, I think that's great. Like I said, I knew an AD as well that they had a storage closet that really wasn't being used, and they just put a desk in there. And again, you have Wi-Fi all over the school, so they put a desk in there, and he would do the same thing. He would separate himself, go sit in that closet, that makeshift office. But he was able to separate like that as well, and like I say, cut off the school brain and cut on the athletic brain. So yeah, if you can find a spot like that, that's great. I know we don't want to hit too much on it, but you also have those athletic directors that aren't teachers or aren't assistant principals, right? Every now and then you may have a community member that's an athletic director, depending on the way your makeup is. Or I've even had substitutes that have been athletic directors, and you never know where that substitute's going to be, right? They could be at the elementary that day, they could be at the high school, and so just briefly, if you from the administration side of it, if you are an administrator that's listening, or if you are an AD that has basically that, we call them adjuncts, but that off campus athletic director, I mean, what's a couple pointers for that? Because their job is going to be, maybe that hopefully they can get out by 3 or 4 o'clock, but their job is going to be 9 to 3 at their normal job, and then having to come over to the school afterwards.
I think from the admin side, it's given the support that they need and checking in on them every now and then. I've got a phenomenal principal that comes to me, hey, how are things going? Where are things at? What help do you need? And I think that's, as an administrator, if you find that you have an athletic director that's in that type of situation where they're showing up at 3:30 because that's how it has to be willing to help. And I know that things like staying after school for an extra half an hour or an hour is not necessarily what some people want, but man, many hands do light work. I mean, you can go out there and you can pull out a scores table and help set up some chairs like that. There's so much time that can be saved, and it just feels good to have people that help you and support you. So I would say, from the admin side, like, help them out, check in on them, see how they're doing, and I would fight for them to get somebody to help them out, fight for maintenance to help, or the custodial staff, or whatever it may be. And I think the thing that we run into is, I think a lot of people have great intentions, and it's not that they're not supporting the athletic directors. It's they don't know what to do, or they don't know what the job really entails. High school athletic director that I know very well, basically said, hey, there's nobody else that knows your job unless they've been an AD, and they don't understand, just simple things like, at the end of the night, putting away 25 folding chairs, the padded ones that are really nice. Those things are heavy. So you get about 15, 20 chairs in, and you've been there since 7 o'clock in the morning. Your back's hurting, you're tired, you just want to get out of there. Oh, well, now there's a spill where the bench was, so now you got to clean that up. So all these little things that nobody that hasn't done the job, they don't understand it, and trying to figure those things out. So I would say, hey, check in on those ADs, give them some help, show up to a basketball game and tell them to go home early. That's a huge thing. When I was just an administrator several years ago, one of the things that I did for my AD at that time was, hey, you give me one game every 2 weeks. You've got it set up, and I'm just going to take over for you. Now, I also loved the job, so that was, wanted to be an AD myself, but that was great for him. He got to go home. I took care of everything at the end of the night, cleaned it up, got everything ready for the next day. So I think the support, just being there, asking if they need help, giving them whatever they need, and then being willing to chip in a little bit is awesome. I don't think people understand how far that goes. And even at the end of the game, when kids help put chairs away, well, that's amazing. That's just, when you're doing it 4 nights a week and you're setting them up and tearing them down every day, it gets old. So having some kind of support is a beautiful thing.
Yeah, and I mean that goes along with asking, right, and communicating, because I've been in both scenarios. I've been where at a school with that that I'm there as the AD, but then I've got a principal there, an AP or whoever. But the principal instructed the assistant principals and then herself. They're the ones staying after the game, and because she told me straight up, she goes, when the buzzer sounds, after you count the money, after you do all the stuff you need to do, go home. You don't need to sit here with the 10 students that don't have a ride, right? Or you need to go home, and I'll stay here with the students and things like that. But I've had the other extreme where I had administration, principal, ASP, all of them. When the buzzer sounded, they were gone. Um, and then so if a student came to the game, maybe they weren't even an athlete, but if they came to watch the game, but they say the game was over at 8 o'clock and they're not getting picked up till 9:30. Well, I'm the one still standing there at 9:30, waiting on them to get picked up. And so, asking things like that, and especially if you're a teacher and an AD, that's an hour and a half that I could have been home with my kids, working on schoolwork, whatever I needed to do. But instead, now I'm going straight home, going to sleep, right?
Yep.
And so again, even if it's that, if you can't get, like we talked about earlier, if you can't get a no duty time, if you can't not have a homeroom or whatever your schedule may look like, ask, hey, can y'all be the ones that stay after the game? I'll do what I need to do. I'll shut everything down. I'll finish out the athletic part of it. But if there's kids waiting around, you know, can y'all watch them, right? So I can go home and see my family, just like y'all want to do. And a lot of times they don't realize that the toll the families take from an athletic director, because we're never home. And if you have young kids, if their bedtime's at 7 o'clock, well, and you come home at 8 o'clock, 3 out of the 5 school nights, right? Then again, that's missed time. So, um,
I think that's a phenomenal point. The amount of time away from families, their own family, that ADs give up is substantial. And I'm lucky because my kids are older, so their bedtime obviously is much later than they were, when they were second and third grade. So when I get home, just about every night they're still awake. So I still get to see them, talk to them, see how their day was, and practices and things like that. But there is an expectation with the job that unfortunately you're probably going to have to give up things within your family that you don't want to. And I've missed my own kids' sporting events. There's been times where I'm sitting on the sideline on my phone as my wife is doing, like a screencast of a game, and I'm watching it and watching, my school's teams play and things like that. But, those are the things that unfortunately we do give up, and it is a balance. And like you said, anytime that we can get, 45 minutes, an hour and a half, 2 hours back of that time, it's invaluable. And it's especially when your kids are, going and doing all kinds of things. It's just time. I couldn't tell you the last time during a season that I really sat down at the dinner table with my wife and my 2 kids, just because of timing of stuff. And that's, those are things that unfortunately we do give up, and we give them up for the kids at our own school, which wouldn't trade it for the world. But being able to have that back every now and then is something that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, but if you've got a principal that is willing to work with you, like say, hey, go home, you at least see they get it. Your spouse at least sees, your kids at least sees, okay, that administrator is trying to work with that AD. Again, it's when you have that non-balance that's the issue.
Absolutely.
But so I think we did a good job in speaking on this for the past 30 minutes or so. Is there any other things that you can think of maybe that we didn't speak on to kind of wrap this up?
I think one of the biggest things, and I touched on it a little bit, is creating your network. That has been so valuable for me, and just talking to the folks that have been in it for a long time, but also talking to some of those newbies that are there in the same boat as you. They may have gotten some great advice from somebody at one point that they can share. But like I said, I've got some some wise veterans, I guess you can say, in the AD game, that are around me that I, text or email or call, whenever there's things coming up, just to bounce off of them. Say, hey, how would you handle this? And have you ever been in this type of situation? I think that is as important as finding what works for them. Whether it's a Google Docs or whatever it may be. It's just having a support system of people that know your job. And like I said, I had an AD telling me that nobody knows your job unless they've done your job. And, rely on those folks around you. If you can get out and you can get classes through NIAAA, get them. That helps you make connections right there, because those folks that are teaching them, I mean, they basically, they're doing it for all the right reasons. So they're doing it to spread the knowledge of the AD world, but also make those connections. So those are some of the biggest pieces of advice that I would give for any AD, whether it's new, been there for several years. The 6th year myself, I'm still trying to talk to other ADs. Hey, how would you handle this? What do you think? This is how I want to set up this tournament. Can you see like any potential issues, those types of things? So it's just making connections as well, and acquiring that knowledge along the way, which ultimately helps you do your job better, and often easier, which we can all use.
Oh yeah, and anything to make it easy and speed it up is very valuable. So before we head into the last section, we do want to thank Vital Signs again for sponsoring the Middle School Athletic Director podcast and letting us being able to speak with people like Jayson and bring this professional development to middle school athletic directors as well. So so we kind of hit on it a little bit, but what are you doing to get better as an athletic director that maybe a listener can try as well?
So I did just finish up my CAA a couple months ago through the NIAAA. So I think, getting through those courses have been super valuable, and it's learning some rules and regulations and different aspects of things. There is the world where you can become a sports administration degree. I did a educational degree. So that there are other classes out there that'll let you evolve into, understanding things a little bit better. The biggest thing is, I love going to our local conference meetings, and that's, a lot of that is just, hey, throwing something out, asking questions like that. Never stop asking questions and never stop learning are some of the biggest things that you kind of run into. And then like through the National Federation of High School, they have a ton of free courses, and no plug there either. Ton of free courses that you can just go and you can do kind of at your own time. And there's been things that I'm like, I don't know if this is going to be very good or not, but sitting down and taking extra courses on bullying and hazing and things as far as athletics. And it's even nice to have some courses on Title IX that are refreshers for you. That, just kind of always doing those things. We have a very, the OHSAA, the Ohio High School Athletic Association, they do a very good job of getting out and about throughout the state and doing updates and then doing some workshops and things. So whenever some of those come up, now unfortunately it's time out of the building, but it's time well spent. And then we also do the OHSAA works with the OIAAA and does a conference in the state of Ohio. So trying to go to that and just learning from folks, just being around other folks and talking. That's, to me, that's one of the biggest things. That's the real world knowledge of the business. You can all day long, this is what should happen, but what happened to you when all of a sudden at halftime of the football game, the sprinklers came on? How did you handle that? Just this past week, I had a drip on my floor, pretty bad. The floor started buckling. I'm calling my business manager. Hey, can you come up here and help me do this? And then you start working on what's your backup plan. Well, those are things that we've talked about, like, how would you handle situations like this? And at what point in time do you make the call to cancel the game or to move the game? Those types of things. So it's, having those conversations with folks and then just listening to others tell stories about things that they've lived in the athletic world is very important to me.
Yeah. And and kind of thinking ahead, if you know ADs that have gone through those situations, like, if you hear about, hey, so and so sprinklers came on during the game, you know, give them a call and say, hey, you can joke about it a little bit at first, say, hey, but all serious, what did you do? Right? What was your plan? So, because inevitably at some time during my AD career, the sprinklers are going to come on during one of my games. And so, if I've got a little bit of knowledge about what somebody else did, that can help, right? And like you said, all of well, not all the scenarios, but I would say a ton of the scenarios that you could go through are somewhere in one of the LTI courses. You just find what you think that you need to work on and grow in, and you'll definitely find some answers in there, if not in the class during the discussions of, because it'll come up, right? Somehow or another, that topic will come up, during your little table discussions, and just like you said, you could grab numbers from people, and I can call, I'll call them out. I can call Scott Jarvis in Ohio and say, hey, what are you doing with this? Just because I've worked with him, I've been with him, um and go from there. Not Ohio, sorry, he's Iowa. But calling different people in different states, and just being able to bounce ideas off of them, and it all came from sitting at the table at those national conferences, or even if you take the online webinars, you still get to communicate with those people that are across the nation, and get their information. So yeah, I'm a big believer on professional development, and if anybody that's listened to this podcast knows that. So definitely go out there and get your certifications. Even if CAA is maybe not a goal, go out there and get your registered middle school athletic administration one, because those two classes are very enlightening. Really kind of dive into the middle school brain a little bit, and the differences that you may have for basketball, you may have a boy that's 4'10", and you may have a boy that's 6'10", right? And so how do you deal with it? So because that was a situation I walked into my first year. Is we had your normal 4'10", 4'11" kid, but we also had a 6'10" giant that was an eighth grader. And how do you deal with that? And so again, always looking to grow is definitely one of my personal mottos.
Yep. One other thing I'd recommend with that is know your building, know your complexes. We had a situation, we had a packed house, kid coming in as an eighth grader, very highly ranked in the state of Ohio and across the country. And all of a sudden, our wrestling coach comes out of the wrestling room, goes to turn off his lights, and it's in a breaker panel, and flips the wrong breaker. And that's the breaker for the emergency lights. And he flips it back on, thinks no problems. And all of a sudden, I see one of the backboards slowly start coming down on the side. So, of course, I'm going, okay, now what's going on here? This is going right into my student section. So I was lucky one of my other coaches were there. So I got him to watch. So no kids were around the basket. And then I had to go find the remote, set the breaker, all these different things. So, but if I was not aware of where those pieces were, we would have been, in a troubling situation there. But knowing where your sprinklers are, knowing where the water shutoff is, knowing where the breaker systems are, all those pieces, I think are extremely valuable to have, because you just never know when folks are around. I'm lucky I've got a bucket and a mop in my office just in case, because you never know. We had somebody throw up on the floor during a basketball game one time, so we had to clean up. So having access to everything and knowing where things are, I think is very important as well. Because I mean, you just, even through 6 years, I can tell some stories of things that have happened that, you would have never thought of. The backboard dropping, slowly descending is one of them. Like, who would have thought that would have happened? So, knowing what your building is and where things are, I think is also very important. I think it also gets overlooked because we think, oh, that's a maintenance thing or that's a custodial thing. Well, if you're there at a, Thursday afternoon or evening at 6:15 during the fourth quarter of a highly contested game, and the custodians are nowhere to be found, well, what are you going to do? So those are just things that you need to think about as well.
Yeah, that's all good. Hey, that's part of that professional development, right? You think you might not be growing that way, but you are definitely growing as an AD, because you'll be able to handle situations hopefully a little easier, a little faster. So, Jayson, I appreciate you jumping on with us. We will tag you throughout the social medias whenever this is posted. Again, this is probably going to be around the last week of February, first week of March.
Okay.
So, right into the middle of like state conference season. So, when you're hearing this, hopefully you're registered to go to your state conference. And if I know Jayson wouldn't mind you reaching out to him if you've got any questions, especially on that dual role and how to get through it.
Yeah, so, reach out anytime.
Yep. So again, for those that are listening, I appreciate you joining us, and we'll see you next time.
At the Wall of Fame, our mission is to bring your school's legacy to life. We transform school tributes to make it easier than ever to celebrate your whole community, showcasing your school's diverse history, proudest moments, and top role models. We understand that the true value of our Wall of Fame is in your content. Whether you are starting a new tribute or adding to an existing one, we give you all the resources you need to build an interactive experience and take your content to the next level. For more information about the Wall of Fame and a 5% discount, visit vitalsignswalloffame.com/Freddie.